Hi, I'm Mark and I'm all about psychology, tech and productivity, and in today's video we're going to be talking about why some people just don't seem to like change and one possible explanation as to why. Spoiler alert, it's got nothing to do with the change. I'm going to show you some examples from the world of behavioural economics which will illustrate my point, and then share some practical tips and tricks for people who are handling change, managing change, or leading change. Now, before we get into all of that, what is behavioural economics? So it's a branch of psychology that seeks to understand the science behind the decisions that we make. So we're going to look at how we can understand them and leverage that understanding to our better use. One of the champions of behavioural economics is Daniel Kahneman, who's an author, psychologist, and Nobel Prize winner, and most people know him from his book Thinking Fast and Slow. And in this book he explores different systems that the brain uses to make decisions, including things like heuristics and biases, and all of these things come into play when we're talking about behavioural economics. And I'm going to make a separate video on cognitive or psychological biases very soon, so if you haven't already subscribed, please hit the button below and hit the bell icon and you'll be first in line when that video is posted. Anyway, would you indulge me in a very quick thought experiment? So if you've been with your friends in a bar, you might have played a would you rather game. So like, would you rather be attacked by one horse-sized duck or 10 duck-sized horses? There's one for you if you haven't played that game already. Here's a different question. Would you rather have, number one, a certain win of $250 or a 25% chance to win $1,000 with a 75% chance of winning nothing? So comment below, which one would you be going with? Now, as all psychologists always say, there's no right or wrong answer. Maybe you're thinking, well, I'd rather have a certain win. I've come with nothing. I might as well come away with some certain cash. Or maybe you're thinking, I've come with nothing. I might as well take a gamble at winning potentially 4 times the amount. It's up to you. Let me know in the comments below. Next up, here's a different proposition. Would you rather have a certain loss of $750 or a 75% chance to lose $1,000, but that comes with a 25% chance of losing nothing? So again, have a think about those two options. If you were forced to, which of those would you rather have? Okay, so let's explore these scenarios in a little bit more detail. Now, Kahneman and his colleague Amos Tversky spent a lot of time looking at the idea of mental accounting. And the central idea was that most people tend to think of value in relative terms rather than absolute terms. So these scenarios are classic values-based propositions. And the two scientists found that people's responses to these questions vary enormously if that decision is framed as a gain versus a loss. And when faced with the first option, most people, maybe this was you, opt for the first, less risky answer. Maybe no surprises here, you're getting certainty of getting the cash. And yes, this indicates that most people prefer certainty over risk. With the second question, most people, maybe this was you, go for the second option. Now, this is far riskier than the first one if you look at the simple mathematics and the probabilities behind it. Kahneman and Tversky propose that this happens because people experience loss far more significantly than they experience gains. So what's all of this got to do with change? Now, this is one of my favourite quotes from Dr. Carlin B. She's on Twitter, she's an organisational psychologist. People aren't afraid of change. They get married, divorced, they move, the pumpkin spice latte comes back. What they're afraid of is loss. I'll say that again. People aren't afraid of change. What they're afraid of is loss. I think there is so much power and truth in this quote, and it really comes to light in a lot of my team facilitation practice and with my coaching clients. People are generally very accepting of the fact that things change, things evolve, they need to adapt around them. Where problems occur is when individuals perceive that change as automatically meaning some element of loss for them. So what can we do about this? Now, obviously this research has huge implications for anybody who's responsible for leading change, handling change, driving change, or even generating influence for change in a business, or for the rest of your life. Some of the tips that I'm about to share apply to managers just as much as they would apply to people who are trying to, for example, influence their partners that they need to move house. So tip number 1, remember from Kahneman and Tversky's work that the framing of a decision is really important. Now crucially, this doesn't just mean emphasize the positives. In fact, I'd say go the opposite way. My advice would be open and transparent about what might be lost if a change takes place, and acknowledge that some of the stuff being lost will be more or less precious to some people. Be open that it will feel uncomfortable, and then it may take some time to process and accept. So tip number 2 builds on tip number 1. If you can pinpoint what it is that's being lost, either to a group or an individual, make a concerted effort not to simply discard it. Talk to people about how significant that thing being lost has been in getting everybody to this stage, and express gratitude for everything that's happened so far in the journey. For those who are familiar with the KonMari method, this is very similar to her advice of saying thank you to something before getting rid of it. Tip number 3. Once you realise that change is often about loss, it can be much easier to observe people's behaviour around change as being similar to somebody experiencing grief. And suddenly, somebody who might seem change averse or trapped in the past might take on a new light as somebody who's simply experiencing loss. Maybe they're angry, maybe they're apathetic, maybe they're attempting to bargain. Whatever behaviour you're seeing from someone who's struggling to handle change, look at it through the lens of loss and see what emerges for you. So hopefully that's a helpful way to think about talking to people about change. Now, if you have any questions, comments or thoughts about this, please comment below and I will reply to each and every one. And in the meantime, if this has helped you in any way, please do me a favour and click the like button. I'll see you next time. No change there.